If you've ever thought a normal job offer can't turn into a nightmare that fast, hold on to that thought. Because in July of 2017, a 20-year-old British model named Chloe Ayling flew to Milan, Italy for what looked like a completely legitimate photo shoot. Normal emails, normal planning, a location that didn't raise alarms. And within hours, Chloe would be drugged, restrained, stuffed into a bag, and told she had been taken by a group that sells women online. A group with a name that sounds like something out of a horror movie, the Black Death Group. Now, here's what makes this case so disturbing. It's not just the kidnapping, it's what they said they were going to do with her, and the way they tried to make it feel real enough to break her mind. The setup. Chloe was building her career as a model in the UK. Like a lot of young models, she accepted jobs through agencies and contacts, and earlier in 2017, she'd already been approached by someone using the name Andre Lazio. That earlier job was supposed to happen in Paris, but it fell apart in a strange way. The shoot was suddenly cancelled, excuses were made, money changed hands, and eventually it was brushed off as just bad luck. Months later, the same person came back with another offer, this time, Milan. July 12th. To Chloe, it was another job, another step forward. To the person behind those emails, it was the plan finally locking into place. The moment everything changes. Chloe arrives at the address she's been given, believing she's walking into a studio. But it isn't a studio, and somewhere inside that space, Chloe is drugged. Investigators would later point to ketamine, supported by physical evidence. She loses consciousness. When she wakes up, nothing makes sense. She's handcuffed, restrained, and at one point, placed inside a holdall, a duffel bag, as she's moved. Imagine waking up and realizing you're not just trapped, you're being transported like luggage. And then the man responsible tells her who he is, or at least, who he's pretending to be. He claims he's part of a criminal organization called the Black Death Group, and that she's been kidnapped for a very specific reason, to be auctioned online. The ransom message. Back in the UK, when Chloe doesn't return, panic sets in. Her agent receives a message demanding €300,000. If the money isn't paid, the message says, Chloe will be sold as a sex slave on the dark web. There's a deadline. Police get involved. The address she was taken to is searched. Some of her belongings are found, but early on the situation is chaotic and unclear. Meanwhile, Chloe is no longer in Milan. She's moved to a remote farmhouse area near Turin, far from the city, far from people, far from help. Captivity, the psychological trap. This is where the case really gets under your skin, because most people imagine kidnapping as constant screaming, constant violence, someone chained in a basement. But the kidnappings that last? They're psychological. Chloe is threatened. She's told she's already been listed. She's made to believe there are powerful people watching, waiting, tracking everything. Fear does the heavy lifting. The man holding her doesn't just rely on force, he manipulates her. Later, he would claim bizarre motivations, including that he'd fallen in love with her and wanted publicity. The court rejected that completely, but it reveals something important. This wasn't just about money. It was about control, fantasy, and delusion colliding with real-world violence. Chloe adapts the way survivors often do. She reads him, calms him, keeps him talking, because when someone unstable goes quiet, that's when things get dangerous. And then the story takes a turn that made the public turn on her. Because after days of captivity, Chloe is seen with him in public. The why didn't she run? Trap. This case exploded in the media, partly because CCTV footage and eyewitness accounts made it look like she wasn't being held against her will. And people asked the most damaging question imaginable. Why didn't she escape? Here's the reality. Threats don't disappear just because you're in public. Fear doesn't shut off because you're standing in a mall. If you believe your captor has people watching, that your family could be targeted, that you're being tracked, and that the person next to you could snap at any second. Your brain stops thinking about logic, it thinks about survival. That's not calmness, that's fear doing exactly what it's designed to do. And Chloe would later explain that she wasn't believed because she didn't act like the version of a victim people expected to see. The release. After 6 days, something happens that still feels unreal. Chloe and her captor walk into the British consulate in Milan. Not rescued in a dramatic raid, not discovered locked in a room, they just arrive. Authorities immediately connect the dots, and the man is arrested. For Chloe, it should have been the end. For the internet, it was just the beginning. The aftermath. An Italian court later convicted a kidnapper of kidnapping and sentenced him to more than 16 years in prison. His brother was also arrested and faced legal consequences. But here's the chilling twist. The Black Death Group, the terrifying dark web organization, didn't actually exist. It was a fabrication, a story created to terrify and control her. Think about that, a kidnapping that didn't rely on locked doors. It relied on a manufactured myth, a villain inventing a bigger villain so the victim feels completely powerless. And even after a conviction, people still argued about whether she acted like a real victim. Ending. When I think about Chloe Ayling's case, the scariest part isn't the ransom amount. It's how modern this feels. A fake professional opportunity. A fabricated identity. A threat that uses the idea of the dark web as a psychological cage. Because you don't need an army to control someone. Sometimes all you need is isolation, fear, and a story convincing enough that your victim stops believing escape is possible. That's what this was. A kidnapping built not only on force, but on belief. And the fact that so many people doubted her after a conviction, that might be the darkest part of all.